Hi, Sonya. Thanks for doing this. I really appreciate your time.
You're very welcome.
Cool. So when I was thinking about this chat, I was thinking back, back to the days when we used to work together. Um,
Yes.
Back then, you were presenting, you were reporting a current affairs show, and before that, you've been a journalist on a whole bunch of shows. And from there, you've gone on to write a couple of books, start a book charity. So you've kind of made some changes as you've gone along. But before we get to that stuff, give us your kind of origin story to becoming a journalist.
Sure. Yeah. Uh, it was never, it was never my childhood dream or anything, but I've always been a storyteller or someone who's loved stories and storytelling. And I did, speech and drama and theatre and everything like that all the way through school. And English was always my thing. I loved writing essays and stories and all of that sort of stuff. And I kind of, half pie considered trying to be an actress and going to drama school and everything, but that sort of felt a little bit out of my league for for a girl from Invercargill. And also, I found out that you had to be 20 in order to get into drama school in Wellington. So I kind of cast around for what I sort of was going to do after leaving school, and actually applied for law school in Dunedin because I fancied myself like one of those. I think I watched too much LA Law and thought I'd be standing up in courtrooms, arguing with people. And then I met a woman at a debating championships in Wellington, and when I was in sixth form, and she said, "Oh, there's this broadcasting school, and it's amazing, and that's what I'm going to do, and you can go and you can become a journalist, or you could study radio or TV or whatever." And I thought, "Oh, that sounds like me. That sounds great." And sort of applied to it thinking that I'd never get in because they don't tend to take, or they didn't tend to take people straight from school.
Right.
And applied for law in the meantime at Otago, and yeah, it did get in, much to my great surprise, and was completely overwhelmed in my first year. Really, really felt like I was out of my depth, trying to do this kind of journalism stuff that I really had no idea about. But really, the basis of it was telling stories and being creative. And I really loved the TV side of things, much more so than the radio, because it was much more about creativity, putting pictures and words together, and sound
Yep.
together to kind of craft a story that was both entertaining and informing and all that sort of thing. And yeah, so eventually got an internship with TVNZ after that in Christchurch, and it all went from there. Yeah. I think when I started the broadcasting school, I sort of had no idea that I'd actually really end up being a journalist despite applying
Right.
for the journalism stream. but
Well,
but
it turned
yeah,
out it worked out quite well for you. You did a pretty good
yeah.
job as a journalist.
Oh, thank you.
I think anybody that has worked with you, even back then, would have noticed you had a bit of a flair for storytelling and probably for scripting. Like scripting always felt like your gig. So what was it about scripting that you enjoyed? Assuming that's true.
Yeah, yeah, it is true. I mean, I liked all the brilliant thing about television journalism is that, you get to go out in the field and you get to meet all these amazing people, and generally in quite, um, extraordinary circumstances for
Yeah.
one reason or another. Either something amazing has happened to them or something terrible has happened to them,
Yeah.
and that's why you're there. You don't go to a place where all is good and well. You go to places where the floods are happening or the fires happening or whatever. So it's that part of it is really exciting and brilliant. But you're right. I did love the crafting of the story, and in television journalism that comes down to the scripting, right? So when you're coming back into the office with all of the pictures you've shot with your camera person, and trying to work out how to use those, and then yeah, writing the words to go with them, and their words to be spoken, not words to be read, so that it's very much a different skill set from being a newspaper reporter, for example. But I did love that, and uh, I loved trying to find a way to say things that was engaging, And I think that's always been my natural thing. Like when I was at school, I was good at writing speeches and writing
Yeah.
debates and all that sort of thing. It was always my thing. So I leaned into that, and yeah, I just loved that, really kind of engaging that part of the brain. Yeah.
So, so you get to a point where you're doing pretty well as a journalist. You current affairs show, you're presenting a current affairs show, you've been on news. What's the thing that makes you think I'm going to do something else?
Uh, Having a baby. That was
Yeah,
that was my catalyst.
yeah,
Yeah, I never really planned to do anything else per se, like to sort of, right, I'm going to pivot or I'm going to move away from this or anything else. But I've always been someone, for better or worse, that needs to feel like they're achieving something.
right,
And that's, to my detriment sometimes, because you're not just kind of sitting there and enjoying life. But I always feel like I need to be, yeah, to be achieving something. And so when, yeah, I went on maternity leave in 2011 with my first son, and I remember thinking, oh well, I'm going to have all this time on my hands. I need to be, I need to stupidly, I need to be doing
yeah,
something with that time. So maybe I'll write a book. And I mean, that was incredibly foolish because you don't have a lot of time on your hands, nor the brain capacity when you've got a newborn baby. But that's what I thought I'd do, because I'd always loved reading and books, and I had this idea that was sitting in my head from my own childhood that I thought would make a good story. So that that was kind of the change. I just thought I needed to be doing something while I was just sitting at home with a baby. And it turned out I didn't have time. It also turned out I didn't know how to write a book. So there's a lot more, many more steps after that to kind of make that happen. But that was it, just a change in circumstances, thinking that I need I need to be doing something else, and I need to still be creating. And I didn't kind of I wasn't a very good stay-at-home mum, because I didn't like that concept of sort of like that sense of missing out on and
right,
everyone else moving forward, and me not. And I have a different take on that now. I sort of wish
right,
I'd just sort of sat down and enjoyed it a bit more. But yeah, that was the catalyst, just needing to have that sense of moving forward and doing something. And it was too hard, once you have kids, to be continuing. I mean, many people do it, but they've got good support around, and we didn't have any family support in town. My husband worked long and strange hours as well, and Al being in a newsroom, that sometimes you show up in your business attire for a day's work, and then you end up on a floodplain in the Hawke's Bay for 4 days, with no notice.
yeah.
So that's really hard to do when you've got babies and toddlers at home. So I had to find something else that I could do that made me feel like I was still creating and still achieving something. Yeah.
It's something we kind of talk about a bit. Is that just because something happens doesn't mean ambition stops. That sense of wanting to carry on doing something. You're a
Yeah.
stay-at-home mum now. Your ambition disappears, or your drive to be getting better or doing something new. So speak to that ambition piece.
Yeah. It's funny how that sort of sense of ambition changes a bit when you're older as you age, I think, or perhaps it's the way you facilitate that ambition that changes, or the priorities around that ambition changes. So what's important to you changes. So the places where you were targeting your ambition.
Yeah,
um and yeah, I suppose I've always been someone who's ambitious, but also someone with a with a really good inbuilt sense of imposter syndrome and shame and all of that.
yeah,
So you know don't necessarily, or didn't necessarily, have a lot of self-belief for these things. So sometimes I feel that anything that I've achieved, I've sort of tumbled into or been pushed along by someone else. Um, so yeah, I think I have been ambitious in some, but ambitious in that way of just kind of needing to be good at whatever I'm
yeah.
doing, needing to do whatever I'm doing well, not that sort of ambition where it's like I must reach the top of this organization, or. win all
Yeah,
these
I
awards.
guess ambition can have a sort of a tawdry element to it as well. But I mean,
Yeah,
I think ambition's actually pretty healthy in keeping you,
yeah,
alert, or learning new things.
yeah, yeah, and it takes a fair amount of energy too, right? You've got to have something that drives you, some sort of want to follow.
Yeah,
Yeah, I just think, in my case, at least, definitely that the kind of ambition or the it's definitely changed, or my attitudes around that have have changed a lot, and that's a little bit to do um, with a slowing down a bit. What I do
right.
now, the levels of stress involved are nowhere near what they were as a news reporter. And I learnt when I pulled back from being a news reporter, um, that I didn't actually like that level of stress, and that, waking up every
Yeah,
morning going, God, what am I going to be doing today? And am I going to be able to do it? And I didn't have that natural sense of confidence that some do, that I will be able to turn around a story that at 9 o'clock in the morning you know nothing about, and make it
yeah,
into some sort of digestible piece of news at 6 p.m. So I found it really hard, and I had really high expectations of myself in terms of getting things right with that. So and you need a lot of energy for that sort of stuff,
sure.
and a lot of drive, and a lot of time.
So
Yeah,
you decide that you're going to write a book, but then it turns out you don't know how to write a book.
yeah.
So so run us through that.
Yeah, so I decided I was going to write a book, sort of sat down, and the few hours a day that having babies and toddlers allowed for. And I was still doing, freelancing work back for TVNZ with you at what was then 2020, and the Sunday program and whatnot. And then, yeah, trying to get this sort of manuscript finished as well. And then I was actually doing a story for, I think it was the Sunday program, and I was interviewing Witi Ihimaera because we were doing a story on on Lee Tamahori's adaptation of Bully Basher's book, which became the movie
Yeah,
Mahana. And I said to Witi Ihimaera, "Oh, I'm trying to write a book myself."
yeah, yeah,
And he said, "Oh, well, what you should do is you should go and enroll in a Masters of Creative Writing at the University of Auckland. There's this fabulous writer, Paula Morris, who runs it. It's just a year. You come out with the first draft of your manuscript, as your dissertation for your master's. You should go and do it. And, if Witi Ihimada gives you writing career advice, you probably should take it." So
sure.
that's what I did. Yeah, I applied for that course, and it was the best thing I ever did, really. Just that going back to university as an adult and just being in that sort of academic environment again, it was so stimulating and
Yeah.
so interesting and fantastic. And even if nothing had come of it, even if no book had been published in the years following, it still would have been an incredibly worthwhile exercise. So yeah,
Did you have any anxiety about doing that? Did you
oh, for
question?
sure.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, because I ended up in a classroom with people who had English degrees and who had written lots of other stuff. I'd never written.
right.
I've been writing for broadcast for 25
Yeah,
years, very, very different to writing prose, and was surrounded by what I felt were a group of people who were far more qualified than I was to be there. Um, but everyone has has their own insecurities for whatever reason,
sure.
and I've talked to my fellow classmates since, and they were like, "What are you talking about? We were afraid of you because you were this television person," and blah blah blah. It's amazing what goes on inside of, we've all got these insecurities that and we assume that everyone else is better or more comfortable than us, but they never are generally.
Yeah. The
Um,
stories we tell ourselves aren't always true. Or certainly,
yeah,
or
yeah.
they can be true, and we can make them become true. But often, what other people see in us is quite different.
Yeah, 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 and interesting, right? It's,
Yeah, yeah,
I've often wished I could kind of see myself from other people's point of view
yeah,
to
yeah.
kind of figure out exactly what I am capable of or not capable of, because it's hard to know, right? You don't know.
Yeah.
And with writing in particular, writing's such a solitary pursuit. You're
Yeah.
sitting there sort of writing away, and no one sees what you're doing for months, if not years. And for all you know, what you're doing is absolute rubbish. I always always think of those auditions on reality TV shows where they have the people that are like, oh,
Yeah.
my mum said I was a really
Yeah.
great singer,
Yeah.
and da da da, and they sing and they're
It's
terrible.
like, oh
And
my
I
God.
always had that fear that, maybe my mum's just told me I was a really good writer, but actually it's terrible. And, you know, um, but, but what I've learned from the many years since with writing is that, nobody is an immediate genius. Even the books that win the Booker Prize, or the documentary that wins, or the film that wins the Oscar, like, none of that was brilliant first up. It just takes
Yeah.
persistence, takes a little bit of talent, but mostly it takes a lot of persistence.
And I think that's one of the things that comes up in conversation quite a bit around the newsletter is it's fear of failure. It's that
Mm.
being prepared to be a beginner is the only way you get to be any better, But as you get older, it's harder to be a beginner again for lots of
Yeah,
reasons, for concerns around finances, or concerns that you look
yeah,
stupid, or do you value all the work you've currently done, like, up till that point, which is
yeah.
obviously not true.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. And I have to acknowledge my position of privilege to be able to do
Yeah,
what I've done, right? Like,
sure.
if I had to be the one that was paying our mortgage, there's no way I could have gone back to school. There's no way, I'm lucky enough
Yeah,
to have a partner who paid the mortgage and who earns enough money to pay the mortgage in the meantime, and still does to a large extent, because there's no money in the creative arts. Um, but yeah, so you do have to acknowledge that's not the case for everyone. But while I am in this position, and I really want to make the most of it, right?
sure.
I want to try and create as much as I can while I can. Um, yeah.
So if you were looking back, or I mean, everything hindsight obviously is perfect. But there's somebody who's in a position that you knew that was looking at making some kind of, not to writing, or it could be to anything. What are the things that you would suggest to them that they keep an eye on?
Um, I mean, I think you just have to. And I watched your interview with Emma Keeling as well, and she said the same thing, where part of it is surrounding yourself with good people who know better than you do. So
Yeah,
finding some sort of mentor. I had a really great mentor in Paula Morris, the writer, who not only taught me how to become a writer of prose as opposed to a writer of television news. She taught me how to become a writer of prose, and also just pushed me into things like, go and do this, you can do this, do this. You need people like that. And you also need to feed the machine. Our brains are like engines. They need
yeah,
petrol or fuel, or whatever to run. So you have to constantly stuff it full. I'm in the at the moment I'm sort of starting a new writing project, and I've got a vague idea of what it is, but I'm in that process, which I love this part of it. It's just like I'm just stuffing stuff into my head at the moment. So I'm just
yeah,
reading books, I'm listening to stuff, vaguely to do with the subject matter, or the setting, or the plot that I'm looking at, and just kind of feeding the machine, and then that all swirls around a bit, and eventually you can spit something out, you
yeah.
know, using all that stuff that you've put in. So, I mean, it sounds cheesy, but honestly, just constantly learning is the thing, right? You've just got to constantly be stuffing
Yeah.
in all the brilliance from other people in order to kind of help fuel your own. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that as you get a little bit older, you actually become slightly worse at. Your circle of friends shrinks, your circle of connections shrinks, and if you want to remain productive or creative, you have to reach out beyond that. Otherwise, you just stagnate.
Yeah. Yeah. And that takes a lot of energy and a lot of confidence
Encourage.
and courage, yeah, to find to do that. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think the more you do, the more people you meet, the more people you meet. The
Yep.
more you
Yeah. Yeah.
do,
Yeah.
the more opportunities come. So, and And I think, I've never really liked the hustle. I've never really liked that, what people call networking and stuff.
Yeah.
Like, go to this networking event, we'll do this more network. And it's like, that's always felt really icky to me and really sort of, you know, feeling like you're just talking to people because they've got something for you.
Transactional. Yeah.
Yeah, really transactional. Thank you. That's a much better word. So really, I think what it is just being like a normal person with a really good level of curiosity and
Yeah.
interest in other humans.
Yeah.
And
I think we should start a campaign on how to change, or a new marketing campaign for networking. Yeah, because I'm like you as well. Networking, just like as soon as somebody says networking to me,
yeah,
I'm not feeling very well. Um,
yeah,
but it is actually really important if you can find a
yeah,
decent way to do it.
yeah. And really, it's just being real.
Yeah.
It's just being a real person and a nice person, and not constantly seeking to take something from someone
Yeah.
else to for your own benefit without giving something back. And I think that's really important to do. I teach the odd class in creative writing and stuff these days, and or kind of speak at seminars for writing, or do workshops and stuff like that. And there are a certain group of people who are just so desperate to sort of grab as much, or speak to people that could be useful for them. And I often say to people, so what are you giving back though? Are
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
buying
Yeah.
their books? Are you reading their books? Are you taking part in this kind of ecosystem? Every industry has an ecosystem, right? That powers it. And so what are you doing to add to the ecosystem rather than just take away from it? Because that's what it relies on. You can't.
Yeah, yeah. You mentioned before that how finding a mentor is like, because mentoring is a really cool thing, but sometimes there's nothing. How do I say this? There's nothing worse than somebody coming to you and say, "Will you mentor me?" It's like
Yeah,
that's going to be work for me. That's going to be a pain
yeah,
in the ass. What you want to go to somebody with something. You
yeah.
present something. Come to the meeting with something. Yeah.
Yeah. Or you need to pay them. You need to pay
Yeah.
them
Yeah.
in
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
whatever
Yeah. For sure.
currency it is that,
Yeah.
that you have, whether that be cold hard cash or something
Yeah.
else. You can't
That's a good point.
expect people to uh to work to be your engine. You can't expect people to do it all for you. You have to
Yeah.
offer something as well. And be reasonable about it. No one else is invested in your life and your career as much as you do. Why
Yeah.
should they be?
Yeah.
They've got their own shit to worry about. So, yeah, you've really got there's a fine line to walk and a balance to be struck. And again, that's to do with just being real and honest and a good person, and not having too many expectations of other people when it comes to furthering your own career.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You mentioned Emma before, and when I was talking to Emma about her journey from journalism to making films, one of the things we talked about, one of the things we do talk about is reinvention, whereas what it seems to be more often than not is a reversioning. It's like going back to something that you loved in the past and putting it in a different package. So would you
yeah.
would you say that's true of your writing experience?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I was always, when I think back to it, I always wanted to write stories as a kid. I'm just not sure I had a concept that could be a job,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
or that could be a real thing to do. And probably now, when I think about it, I don't regret anything that I've done, but what I could or should have done, is gone to university and done an English lit degree, and all that. I still feel like I'm catching up on all of that stuff as a
but
writer.
imagine the life experiences you wouldn't have had,
Oh,
which you
100%.
now are able to bring to writing.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. Yeah. And journalism does that. That's the fabulous thing about being a journalist, is as
Exposure.
as you'll know, it's just you get to meet the Prime
Yeah,
Minister, but you also get to
yeah,
meet
yeah,
a single mother with 4 kids on a benefit who something extraordinary has happened to, and often
yeah,
they are the people who teach you much more about,
for
you
sure.
know, about life. And I write fiction now, and there's often this is a really fascinating thing that I've learned as someone who was a journalist trying to tell the truth for many years, that I find now that there is, to a certain degree, extent, much more truth in fiction than there is in nonfiction, right?
Right.
You know, you can tell these kind of stories with greater truths or
Yeah.
greater truths about the world than you ever can in nonfiction, because as a journalist, you're always bringing, you know, what might be your own take on it, and that's based on your own experience or your own lack of experience or
Yeah.
whatever else. So I've learnt a huge amount when it comes to writing fiction about people, you know, and about who
Yeah.
they really are and about their drivers and motivations and everything. But that's very much built off 20 years of meeting people from all
Yeah.
walks of life that I would never have been able to do, experiences that I would never have been able to have had I not been a journalist. So it's a really great, it's a really great combo, I think, and
Yeah.
very
I
lucky.
think that's probably true, not just, people doing pretty much anything. The the past is always a great feeder for whatever you want in the future. It, making a change later in life is often based on the experience you've gained, and has value.
Yeah,
It's not sunk cost. It's not a waste of time. It's actually what's going to inform what you're going to do next.
yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So you're writing books, you're looking after kids, got a whole bunch of shit going on, and you found a charity. So, because you had nothing else to do. So, talk us through that.
Yeah, that was incredibly accidental as well. Yeah, so I'm the founder and executive director of a charity called Kiwi Christmas Books, and we gift books to families who can't afford to buy Christmas presents for their kids or who struggle to access good books for their kids in general. And that kind of came about honestly because I just it was really accidental, and we've been going 5 or 6 years now, and I sort of find myself as this head of this charity, which was never supposed to happen, and doing things that I never thought I could do, you know, like using spreadsheets and doing accountancy and writing annual reports and stuff like that. And it still makes me laugh to think of me doing that sort of thing. You know, that's management and economics and maths was never my forte. I'm a creative person. Um, but you know, I got to learn about the value of books when I was studying creative writing and the value of stories and storytelling and what it gives children and what it gives us as adults. And that, you know, not only does all the obvious things like developing excellent vocabulary and academic success and all of that, but that it gives you emotional success as well, right? A far more intangible thing, but
Yeah,
it does. It develops empathy, understanding of the world. There's, you know, I rave about this stuff all the time, but there are so many studies that show that kids who read what we do call reading for pleasure, who read
yeah,
novels, made-up stories, fairy tales, they are far more likely to succeed later in life in every available measure. So
yeah,
academically, emotionally, they're far more likely to take part in their communities and make better decisions and all of that sort of stuff. So having learned all of that, I was sort of lying awake in bed one night at 3 o'clock in the morning trying to rewrite a short story that I was doing for a third year English paper at university. And sort of lamenting the fact that I hadn't read more as a kid, because if I had,
right.
you know, in my mind, I would have been much more of a genius than I was. And so I got to thinking about my kids and how many books they're surrounded by, and how unfair it was that there were many other kids around the city that did not have books, had never owned a book of their own, were unable to read because there were no resources at home. So I thought, well, I'll just go and I'll give a few books to the city mission this year instead of plastic toys for Christmas.
Yeah,
And it kind of just snowballed from there. I asked my friends to do the same, said we need to buy new books, not secondhand books. These kids
yeah,
deserve something new. Many of them have never had a book before, never had a new book. Many have never had a Christmas present before. Um, and my friends and family came to the party and ended up delivering in that first year, I think, 1,600 books to the City Mission and the Women's Refuge. And then Paula, my creative writing mentor, said to me, "Oh, you should do this nationwide. You know, this is great because not only is it helping kids, it's helping the whole creative ecosystem, right? It's
yeah.
getting,
As you talked about before. Yeah,
yeah, it's getting more people into bookstores, it's getting more people buying books, it's supporting authors and illustrators and publishers and independent booksellers as well." So, um, you know, because I was, you know, scared of Paula and tended to do whatever she told me, you know, I wasn't really scared of her, but I tended to do whatever she said. So I said, okay, yep, sure, I'll do it nationwide. And so I attempted to do that the following year, and we got thousands of books delivered. But then I sort of found myself almost working full time for 6 months of the year for no money, trying to do
Yeah.
this great thing. And everyone loved it. I mean, it's a really easy co-pupper to get on board with, kids and books. No one's going to argue
Yeah.
against the value of that. So everyone was super keen for me to keep doing it. But as it was, I was trying to write books for no money. I was trying to run a charity for no money. It's like, I can't keep doing this. So I got a little bit of funding from a couple of literary sector grants, which was great, that allowed me to do it the following year and pay myself a little bit of money to do it. And then realized that people sort of wanted to start giving me cash as well. And for all they knew, it was going into my bank account and, out to the pub or whatever. So I thought, well, I better make this official as well. So start it, make it an official charity so that,
Yeah.
I can show people that all the money's being accounted for and everything. And I'm not sure I really appreciated how much I was, biting off with
Yeah.
that
Yeah. Yeah.
exercise. But I did, and it meant that it opened up a whole range of funding for us, and we were able to apply for grants and everything else. So I could keep doing it year after year because I could then pay myself for the work that I was doing. Not always,
Yeah. Yeah.
sometimes, but it was enough to, to make it worthwhile and keep going. So it's just kind of snowballed from there. I was just doing the numbers for our last Christmas campaign, just finished, and I think we're looking at sort of upwards of 13,000 books that were
Wow.
donated last year. So yeah, so
That's good.
it's a lot, and I think we did 51 or 52 different charities, 40 odd towns and cities around the country. So that's a lot of kids getting books that
Yeah,
otherwise
that's
would
great.
have gotten books. Yeah.
Um, this seems like an appropriate place for you to plug your book and your charity. So, if people are interested in buying your books and or with the charity, where should they go?
Oh, thank you. Yeah, so my two books are called, first one's called Spark Hunter, and the second one is called The Secret Green. And they are what we call middle grade books. So they're sort of good for kids about 9 years and up, right up to adults, I would suggest. Both set down in Fiordland and these sort of adventure fantasies with lots of environmental themes. And yeah, they're available in all good bookstores, really. And if they're not in your local bookstore, they they are mostly around every bookstore I've walked into lately. I've seen them, so that's great. But if they're not there, you can just ask to order them in, and also they're in the library as well. And then, yeah, our charity is called Kiwi Christmas Books, and our website for that is just kiwichristmasbooks.org.nz. And we do a massive Christmas campaign every year, as is in our name. But we also do a bit of work throughout the year, getting books out to various charities and schools throughout the year as well. So
Through the year.
we do take donations all year round for that as well.
Cool.
Yeah.
I'll put some details in the show notes.
That's all.
So one thing I do know about you, Sonia, is that you have absolutely no sense of direction in a physical sense. But I've really enjoyed watching the direction in which you've gone. It's been really inspiring, and I look back fondly on the times when we worked together and stuff. And I'm really proud of what you've done. So thanks for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. I look back very fondly on our time together as well. And some of my favourite stories around New Zealand and around the world were done with you, Al. So thank you very much. And thank you for all your support. I really appreciate it.